All right, welcome to the Nathaneal Podcast. And today we have a guest that we had before, but we're having again because I don't know, he's just a cool guy. So yeah, welcome, Cory.
Hey man, it's good to be back on. I know that there was about 48 different topics that we didn't get to cover in the first podcast. We spent a good chunk of it laughing and telling stories. So uh, I am ready to go, ready to talk about all the stuff that we didn't get to, and I'm sure there will be some laughs had again. So I'm happy to be back on, man.
For sure, dude, as always. But what I do, so just to clarify, Cory is a sales coach on X. Although you did mention before that you regret calling yourself a sales coach.
Yeah. So a lot of my work has been more along the lines of like sales consulting and even diving into like business consulting a little bit, depending exactly on who I'm working with. So I think the word coach is thrown around very, very loosely. It's used very loosely
Hmm.
by a lot of different people these days, and I would definitely consider myself more in the consultant realm, but call me a coach, call me a consultant, call me whatever, whatever you want to. I'm good with it.
As long as it's Cory. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, man, not a lot of people know. Well, so I have been working for you for a while, and like, although you brand yourself as a sales coach, you are technically kind of like a business consultant. And you mentioned in our last podcast how you actually have ran like quite a handful of businesses. Um, how did that transfer, like the experience that you had before to your work now?
Yeah, I think a lot of it carried over. So I think that when you start a one person business, there's a lot of things that you probably aren't considering, right?
Mm,
Even if you do, go through a course or really dive into your research, there's always going to be surprises.
mm,
And there's going to be a lot of things that while you want to move quickly in a one person business, there's going to be a lot of things that you may miss when it comes to building the foundation of that business, and being able to start building on top of that foundation.
mm,
So I know that a lot of our work and a lot of the work that I do with some other people who are starting one person businesses is laying that strong foundation. Kind of a metaphor that I often use is, a lot of people try and build their foundation with sticks and then try and lay bricks on top of that as they
yeah.
start to bring on clients. So a lot of the work that I do is going back and kind of clearing out that stick built foundation and building a solid concrete foundation that allows us to build with bricks and build something really steady, repeatable, something that you can build a sales pipeline on top of. And that's really where the
Mm,
sales process comes into play. But one of the things that I love so much about the work that I do with people who run solo businesses who are just starting out is just how personalized it is.
mm,
Because each person is going to need something different to really get deep into their sales process and start building with clients on top of clients.
mm.
And so that's probably my favorite thing. And not sure how much I actually answered your question there, but
No, yeah.
first tangent already taken.
No, I yeah, man. I mean, you kind of did answer like laying this strong foundation because a lot of people, even for me, right, dude, I joined X not even thinking of business. All I was doing was literally posting, and then I suddenly grew, and I was like, oh, let's try to make money, and then. I did, but then, dude, I would got so burned out. My outreach system was all over the place. I didn't know how to communicate my offer. I didn't know how to hop on. Like, I just made money, but I didn't really have like a good foundation, as you mentioned, and it definitely helped with that. And although you mentioned that like everything is personalized, so like you can't really have a one size fits all solution for everyone. which I also like about your program, is like you really make it specific to that person. Have you noticed any patterns generally on like X people who you've coached, that like it's a recurring problem for them, and like you've seen over and over again that you kind of expect it from everyone else?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things that is undervalued, I would say, by
Mm,
most of the people who I begin working with on X who are in a similar situation to yourself, who have taken on clients, started to started to prove their concept that people want what they put out there,
yeah.
and they are making money from it. I think a big thing is tracking data and being able to
Mm,
act off of that data, right? Um, a lot of people neglect to track everything that they're doing, and really try and quantify it. And so that's the first thing that I put into place with a lot of the people that I work with, and really that's both coming off of X and the people that I work with outside of X, right?
mm,
Salespeople, a lot of people, a lot of salespeople that I work with have their company's CRM in place, but maybe aren't tracking specific things that they're hearing on their
mm,
calls, um, and not really taking full advantage of these expensive CRMs that their companies are providing to them. So, with the people on X, to answer your question specifically, I would say that that one thing is going to be tracking and acting on data. Um, Knowing how many touch points you're taking with each prospect,
mm,
knowing the result once you've taken once you've taken those touch points, and knowing your sales cadences, getting those figured out, and
mm.
being able to act on specific parts of your ICP based on the data that you're collecting, because everything that you do has value in that you are learning from it. But if you are not tracking and quantifying it, then it's going to take you a lot longer to just shoot from the hip, in
Yeah.
terms of, oh, it feels like this is going to work better, it feels like that works better. So yeah, that's the one thing that I'd say I end up putting in place with pretty much every single client that I've taken from X, would be some sort of tracking and a way to act on the data that we're collecting.
I like that, man. And you are a pro in that because you did data analytics, right?
I did, yeah. So one of the actually two of the businesses that I ran, were in data analytics, sports analytics to be specific.
Yeah.
So the combination of always using CRMs with
Mm,
sales as well as data analytics, um, it's an interesting combination because it makes me look at things in a very black and white way oftentimes, right? It's either A
yeah.
or B, it's binary, where so many people, when starting a business, really they could use more of that. So that's kind of where
Mm,
I've found that my outlook has been beneficial to people who are just starting out.
yeah. I think that's the thing. What you mentioned, black or white, 0 or 1. I think that's one of the biggest things that I got from your program as well. Because before, when I would do outreach to people, it would be like so long. Like I'd have so like it would be so many back and forth just to know that, oh, he doesn't want it.
Hmm.
But like with you, you kind of told me, bro, just give him an offer, and if he says yes, then he likes it. If he says no, then it's way better than you spending so much time on one person just to figure out that you're not a good fit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all about, as you're building your one person business or your agency, whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
it's all about leveraging the value of your time and making your time as valuable as possible, right? And that's why you
Mm,
want to continue to increase prices. And a lot of people do that, in the very surface level ways. But when you're talking about anything from outreach to jumping on calls to, um, you know, I mean, heck, you jumping on a podcast like this, right? You have to see it in terms of your return on investment. And
Oh
then
yeah.
once you have a return on investment for your time, then you can go and work with people who you're just working with for fun or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be, right? It's a big thing for me to kind of give back to young starter entrepreneurs and jump on a call with them and not worry about money. And so I've put myself in a position where I can do that every once in a while.
Mm.
Please don't flood my DMs,
Dude.
but but I do like to do that every once in a while. So it's while it's binary in terms of the return on investment of my time, I still get a sense of community and the feeling that not everything is about money. Because if everything is about money, I think I would probably drive myself a little crazy.
Yeah, man. Um, where I was thinking, like what you mentioned was that you can have fun, but when you have leverage already, I think the problem, or not a problem, but like the reason why most people on X are struggling with like that notion is because they are creatives, and we did talk about this in another call before. Where like when you're a creative, like a writer or a designer or a video editor, and you like you like doing things for the sake of it without any compensation, you tend to like get onto that deep into that hole of just doing things for free and not putting yourself in a higher standard where, look, I'm doing something valuable and I need value back before I give it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that for you specifically, we created something that tells you in no uncertain
Yeah.
terms, where that value is coming from. And I think that's really important for people to be able to understand the value that they need to get, and be definitive about that.
Mm,
And a lot of people, like you said, they're creatives oftentimes, where that binary thinking is not really there.
mm,
The value of every single minute of their workday is not really there. It's not, that outlook is not taken. And
yeah.
while it's not impossible to build a business just as a creative, or to build a freelance, enterprise, I guess, just as a creative, um, at a certain point, people hire CROs, and CEOs and CMOs because they just want to be on the creative side of it.
Yeah.
And while you are building a one person business or a one person freelance enterprise, or I'm just, from this point forward, freelancers are going to fall under the category of one person businesses, so I don't have to go into every single category on this podcast. But
Yeah.
you have to be your own CRO. You have to be your own
Mm,
CEO, CMO, and people don't really think in terms of the different responsibilities that these companies have,
mm,
and how to whittle them down into their own roles and allow themselves to, take an hour of their day and assume the CRO role. Make sure that revenue is lining up. Um, and so, that's kind of bigger picture thinking for a lot of the people who are just getting started. But I've found in my past businesses, uh, when it came to data analytics, I did not want to be a marketing person. You know,
mm,
I did not want to market. I wanted to really work on the product and sell, and I didn't want to market or do customer service. Uh, and that hurt me. And I finally realized when I was building one of my initial businesses there, that I needed to do everything, and I needed to do it well. And that's when I went out and started hiring people. And really, you have two options: either you can hire people to come on as an employee, or you
a
can
freelancer.
hire consultants, or people to help you execute in the areas where you're kind of weak. So that's really where I come in, and where I see myself helping people mostly, is
Yeah.
realizing that they need to get into these roles themselves, and giving them the start to be able to build off of it.
Yeah, the systems, man. Like the systems that you, dude, the systems that you built, um, it was so useful, and I get to use them. Not like the exact system, but like I now track data for everything, like my marketing as well. It helped me because you made me realize that you gotta like look at who replies, how many engagements, and now it's like when I send an email, I used to just send an email and like whatever. Now I look at what emails work, what are the things that get the most clicks, who are the people who always open my emails, who are the people who always engages my stuff. So yeah, it's very useful. And that's in the macro level, I think, in terms of like tracking data. But what I want to know now is like more in the micro sales level, because that's your specialty, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
in a more um, sales approach, in the sales approach, what do you think is the biggest problem for X people, like you've noticed?
Yeah, I think that that's like a two-headed monster. So first of all, I think it's volume.
Mm,
People need to realize that the more volume they could put out, the better chance they're going to get a sale, right? And that their time on X, it feels like a lot of people are kind of floating, right?
mm,
Almost stalling. Um, Rather than taking action. And I would say number one, you have to take action, right? And I'm not a huge fan of cold DMs where there's no touch points beforehand and there's no personalization. That's not what's within my process. And so the second part to that is people go a little overboard in terms of the other side of cold DMs with wanting to reach out and be your best friend, right? They think if I mean they think if you're their best friend that you're going to buy from them. um, and we all get these DMs every day, man. Like if you're listening to this, you probably get these DMs every single day. um, where it's the same template where somebody tries to become your friends. And look, if there was just like a few people out there in the social media world doing that, then it would probably be a lot more effective than it is now. But for right now, considering it's the same DM that I get 10 times a day, um like making friends is great, but it's not going to be your most effective sales. Like it should not be your most effective sales tactic, right?
yeah.
So I think, and I've said this on Twitter before, you really have two categories. You have your connections and you have
Yeah.
your prospects. And you have to be able to have more prospects than connections, right?
Mm.
If you make friends with everybody, you're going to be in a scenario where, like you said, your outreach is going to take forever, man.
Yeah, man, dude. That is so true. Because that's what I did before, man. Like I tried to make friends with people and like pitch them, and it did work. Like I closed some clients, but it was unsustainable because one, again, it was so long, and
Hmm.
two, it was like it also kind of ruins the friendship when you're being friends, and then suddenly
Yep.
you pitch them. Dude, I had one guy who's like, he followed me and he was like, "Oh, I'm a big fan," blah blah blah, and I'm like, I was chatting him, cool, cool, and then like he was I don't know what happened, but we had a chat. It was a good chat. I was like, this guy's cool. And then suddenly he asked me, do you want a website? I'm like, wait. So I said, nah, man, thank you, but I will keep you in mind. It's like, why not? I'm like, oh, what?
Yeah, it's very hard to like overcome any objections when you're pitching to a friend, right? And that's why I'm a big fan of, first of all, make your connections. Absolutely. And those connections may come to you one day and be like,
Mhm.
hey, I would like your service. And
I've
that's
had
great.
those.
Exactly. But like at the end of the day, um, if you're trying to build a client base, that's going to be a difficult way to do it.
Mm.
And while the connections are valuable and you should absolutely be making connections, and that's something that I'm actually trying to do more of, right? Um, at this point with where my business is, I'm trying to do a little bit more of that, and make a few more friends, and for business purposes and just for the purpose of not going crazy. This is my full-time job. I sit here in my home office all day, like,
With all the dogs.
with all the dogs. Yeah, dude, I'm gonna be speaking dog here soon if I don't, make more connections and have constant conversations with people whose opinion I value. Um, but also on the other side of that, like, outreach for me is very simple. Like, I value the time of the person that I'm reaching out to,
Mm,
right? And I want that to be known because I value my own time highly. If I'm going to work with them, I need them to value their time highly, right?
mm,
That is going to be a successful relationship between me and that person, and that also probably means that they can afford me,
yeah.
to be very blunt about that. But so for them to give me any of their time, like for them to hop on a call with me or just even go back and forth in the DMs, I'm going to offer them something that would put a value on their time, right? I'm going to do something for them in exchange for that time that they're giving me. And I think that that's only fair. And I did tweet something, I believe it was like a week back or so, that you should be spending basically 3 minutes for every minute you expect your prospect to spend, right? So that would mean if you're asking for a 30-minute call, right?
Mm,
Your prospect between DMing you and jumping on that call, everything combined is going to be about an hour. You should have 3 hours of prospecting, research, preparation for that call,
mm,
preparation along the lines of um, pricing, suggesting the top things for them. And you should come into that call, and you can also include the time after the call to, you know, do whatever follow up you need.
mm.
But you should be spending at least 3 minutes for every minute that you expect your prospect to spend, because at the end of the day, you want an exchange of your time. Right? If you're a service provider, if you have a product, then it would be your time plus a product for the exchange of their time plus their capital.
Mm.
So it's a trade of time plus capital on their end, and it needs to be worth it.
Right, right. Um, One thing I did want to go back again to like the DMs because I want to like just I don't know. I just like to shit post. But because like the one conversation I had with Arnie Ho, like a creator from X, we talked about how these people like the cold DMs and the warm DMs, why it doesn't work, and I want to get your thoughts on this because I feel like the reason why cold DMs don't work, where you just like outreach to people, is imagine you do that in person, right? Like when you just go to someone and then tell them, hey, do you want this? Like, hey, do you want a bottle? It's like, no. Like no one's, I don't know who will ever say, hey, do you want a bottle? And like, yeah, I like that bottle. And the other part of that, what you mentioned is like making friends. Imagine if someone made friends with you, right? And just to like tell you, yo, I got this like bottle here.
Yeah.
Like
Come in the alley. Let me show you this cool bottle.
right? And I think people forget that you're dealing with people, not robots, right? Like
Yep.
cold DMs, they work. He said that Arnie Ho said that like cold emails, it works perfect with businesses because when you go up to a business, like you go to the assistant of someone and you tell them I have something to offer your boss, they'd be like, okay, what do you have? And then they'll like study it and then they'll entertain you. That's because you're in a company. But when you're like dealing with people, if you just say, hey, I have an offer for you, it's like, there's nothing. So yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love Arnie's takes on stuff like that because he really does bring it back to like the personal level, and that's something
Yeah.
that he's so good at, is putting it in that context. And yeah, I mean, I think that for me, I'll bring it back to the binary here, right?
Yeah.
In that you are going to basically, let's use that same example, right? So if I am able to walk up to 100,000 people and go, hey, do you want this bottle for $5? Right?
Yeah.
There's going to be someone in those 100,000 people who was just talking to the person next to him going, man, I could really use a bottle right now. Right? And like just from the law of percentages, there's gonna be one or two
Right.
people that were
Okay.
just thinking, man, I want a bottle. And there's probably gonna be, 10 more who were thinking, man, I could have used a bottle, yesterday. And so you're going to have to approach an extreme number of people
Yeah.
for those cold DMs to churn out the same results as some other methods. And then on the other hand, let's use the same example and make friends. Like this is one of those where I would have ventured to guess you guys don't have this over there, but like basically here when it's Girl Scout cookie season, right?
Okay.
The Girl Scouts set up out in front of stores, right?
Mm.
And oftentimes it ends up being the adults making the sales. Like the Girl Scouts will be like, "Hey, do you want some cookies?" And the adults will be like, "Hey, that's $10." and so like that's what I kind of imagine this example that you used with like the water bottle in terms of talking in person, right? It's like, hey, these cookies taste really good. Here's a free sample. Do you
Yeah.
want to buy this pack, right? Or it's like you're just yelling at everybody, buy my cookies, buy my cookies, buy my cookies. Or you're like, hey, let's be best friends. And like, then from
Eat
there,
a
you're in
cookie
a 30
together.
minute conversation. Yeah, exactly. Like let's have a cookie together, and then it's like, oh, but do you want to buy this box of cookies? I mean, the real life examples can get a little creepy, but I think that so much of the perceived confusion comes
Mm.
from people not putting it in the way that you just described already
Yeah.
putting it. And that
Yeah.
in reality, this is person to person, right? For the most part, like I do deal with some companies and selling to companies. Obviously, you have to go through a hierarchy, a gatekeeper,
Mm.
sometimes things of that nature. But when you're dealing person to person, in reality, just talk to them like a person. And if somebody were to reach out to you and was like, hey, Nathaniel, like I see that you said X, Y, and Z. I
Mm.
very much so agree with that. I think that I can help you with Z. Here's what I'm going to do. If you just give me your attention and time, I'm going to give you part of the solution to Z. You're going to be like, oh,
Mm.
that
Interesting.
makes sense. Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I have no risk aside from my time, but
Mm.
he's alleviating that risk with value.
A strategy. Yeah.
Um, Exactly. And so, um, yeah, I think that that's the difference between, all the way on one end of the spectrum with making friends, and then all the way on the other end of the spectrum with cold DMs, and just like very cold DMs, right? Um, and there's a middle ground there where
Yeah.
you get those touch points done. And I was actually talking to a client about this 2 days ago
Mm.
um, in business. And this was the last time I saw this, which was a while back. But the average time that somebody needs to see your product before they consider buying it is anywhere from 8 to 14 times,
Mm.
depending on your product, the price point, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Some go way above, but that is generally the average.
Mm.
So if you are not doing any touch points, or if you're just like speed liking somebody's stuff and then messaging them, right?
Ah.
Like, are they going to actually see you those 8 to 14 times and see whatever value proposition you may have 8 to 14 times before
Mm.
you're pitching something to them? No, they're not, right? And that's why the success rate is so much lower. Plus it's just, you know like you said, you walk up to somebody and be like, hey, you want to buy this water bottle? Like, you don't know that they need a water bottle. You should probably figure out that they need a water bottle first.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe they don't need like anything at all. And I mean, that's when you can just be friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. If they want to be friends, then why not?
Yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, I didn't finish that story. That guy who pitched me video editing or like design a website, he unfollowed me. Like, he's
Yep.
like, he followed me, messaged me. I rejected him. He unfollowed me.
Yep,
Yeah.
I've had that. They're your best friend until you don't want to buy from them, and then it's like, you're nothing to me. Your content is so amazing. It's incredible. I love it. Imagine what we could do if we built a website with this. No, I'm good, man. All right, well, your content's not really that good. Unfollow. Like, and
Yeah.
dude, like that kills any chance for a follow up too.
Exactly.
Right? Like if you were like, no, man, not right now, but if I do need anybody, I'll keep you in mind. That's when a month down the road, and that's why you should be tracking this stuff and have that date set up to where a month down the road you check back in and go, hey, man, he could have checked back in with you and said, hey, man, I see that you've built a site.
Website, yeah, I mean,
Yep.
yeah.
And I'd be
my
happy
offer?
to do. Yeah, I'd be happy to do a free audit of your site and give you an idea of what I think would perform even better. If you give me 30 minutes of your time for a call, and at that point you'd probably be like, sure, yeah, why not, right? If this guy's going to give me a free audit of my site. But no, he had to go and follow you and get all mad about it. And that's another thing. You can't let emotions play into your outreach, man. And if you're trying to make every single person your friend that you outreach to and are trying to sell to, then emotions are going to get involved much more than they should. You're going to get way more emotional over your outreach than you ever should be, because in reality, if you're doing outreach right, you're going to get no's more than you get yeses. I'm sorry to tell you, but if you're doing enough volume, you're going to get a whole heck of a lot more no's than you do yeses. And if you're getting more yeses than no's, then you probably need to crank up your volume. Like that is if you want more clients.
Right. And just to go back again, so the two things are volume and what's the other one?
Volume and kind of falling in the middle of that spectrum where it's not making friends, but it's not absolute cold DMs.
Right. Okay.
Having the separation between connections and prospects.
Gotcha. Yeah, man. I did notice that, like, but again, we go back to what I told you or what I mentioned earlier. It's like it's just better to have a no, like just be a businessman and accept that sometimes it's just gonna be a no.
Yeah, and like I value my own time. I hope my prospect values their time. So if we're just going to go around in circles dancing around this, then I'm losing money in doing that and not getting a yes or a no. I'm losing money. If they're continuing to talk to me, they're losing money. And for
It's
me,
actually way better.
Yeah, for my setup, I help people make more money. So like I am not only wasting my own time, I am doing the opposite of what I want to help people do for this prospect.
Right. That's a great way of thinking about things. So now we have macro scale, which is the tracking data. We want, in terms of outreach, volume plus finding that sweet spot between doing sort of like a warm-ish, cold-ish outreach, like not too warm where you just become friendly and cuddly and like want to just nose up to them. But now we go into like the sales call itself. In terms of that, what is it again that you notice is like the most prevalent mistake that you've noticed pattern wise?
Yeah, so that one varies a bit, bit
Okay.
more than the other ones. However, I will say that people generally get good high level advice about their sales calls, right? So there's a lot of stuff out there that says, ask a lot of questions. You want your prospect to speak more than you're speaking. And that is really good high level advice, right? But it's not really applicable for every prospect or for every
Mm.
approach, right? Which is where the personalization of working with somebody on your approach and being able to prepare for your sales calls, things of that nature, that's where that kind of comes into play. So, what I will say is probably the most common mistake, right? I don't want
Mm.
to call it a mistake, but like uh, over exaggeration that I see
Okay.
is people will get on the phone and they'll start with a little small talk, which I'm not a huge fan of small talk, but that at the end of the day is not a make or break, right? It's kind of expected to go into a little bit of small talk, and then from there they'll immediately get into discovery questions, and it's just
Mm.
like question, 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 question. It's like an interrogation, right? Just asking questions nonstop, and then at the end of all these questions, it'll just be a wall of value. Oh, okay, well, I know that you said this, so I'm the right fit for you because of this, 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 and that. And my cost is this much. So do you want to buy it? And that's where you get people going, well, I'm going to have to think about it. Right.
Yeah.
And I say this in one of the modules in my course. Like, I have an entire module dedicated to this. It's the pink shirt module. For those that have watched my course, you'll understand that. But it's something where all of a sudden there's this pressure, right? They have taken in all this information at once at the end of the call, and now there's this pressure to quickly consume and digest that information and then make a decision that quickly. Right.
Mm.
In terms of if they want to make an investment in this. And that's why you see so many people trying to buy more time, backing off,
Mm.
because they all of a sudden feel that pressure. Even if you're not presenting it in a way that gives them a lot of pressure, it's natural to feel that pressure to have to make a commitment when you've just gotten all this information. So,
Mm.
a lot of what I do is working on number one, qualifying, right?
Yeah.
Pre-qualification before the call, qualification on the call, and then from there, foreshadowing and providing value within the discovery. So you want it to be a
Yeah.
genuine conversation,
Conversation. Yeah.
right? So within your discovery, and I know that that's something that you've really dug into, is the conversational side of things.
Yeah.
Um, Within your discovery, and then you keep on building on that with soft skills for what it's worth. But
Mm.
within your discovery should be a back and forth. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be okay, Nathaniel, well, what do you want out of sales coaching? hmm Okay. Okay. And how do you feel about that? Okay. All right. Like, it should be well, what do you want out of sales consulting, sales coaching, whatever it is that you're selling,
Mm.
right? And you give me an answer, well, I want to convert higher and build a foundation, blah blah blah.
Mm.
Oh, great. Well, yeah, here's how I would go about that for you. Here's the steps that I would take
Mm.
for you. Here's what we would do. We
Right.
is a big one.
Yeah.
um, Here's what we would do to get you from step A to step B, and then you go on to your next discovery question. It's a
Right. Then what?
conversation, man.
Yeah, and one of the things that I liked that you taught me as well is like when you, so it's like a question. So I forgot how you term it, but like basically a sandwich where you do a question and then they give an answer and you also give like an input a little bit and then ask another question so that the conversation keeps going. Because like I think most of the people, or at least or not, me, I get just because I've never been in any other sales call, but me, it's like once I ask and they give an answer and then I give another answer, I forget to like ask another thing, so there's dead space and it
Yeah.
becomes weird.
Yeah, exactly. That you want to stack sandwiches, like you said, right? So if the bread is you talking, right,
Yeah.
and the filling of the sandwich is them talking,
Mm.
first of all, what's going to be more valuable? It's the filling of the sandwich, right? You can't just have, if you just have bread, you just have a loaf of bread, right? If you have the filling of the sandwich, the meat, the lettuce, whatever else, you could probably make a salad out of that, right? So that the filling of the sandwich is going to be more valuable there. So you want to stack sandwiches, right? Your bread is what you're saying. The filling of the sandwich is what they're saying. The bread is your response to that. But then what comes next if you're stacking sandwiches? It's the bread again, then they're filling,
Mm.
then the bread. And that's also how you keep call control, right?
Yeah.
Even if somebody is extremely talkative, you want to maintain call control. Even if they are taking up 75% of the call with their talking, you still want to maintain call control and maintain the uh, achieve the goals that you set out to achieve for this call. If
Mm.
you are not able to achieve the goals that you set out to achieve for this call, then it is going to be once again a waste of time
That
for
makes
you
sense.
and for them, right? And that is a pretty extreme waste of time if you're going to sit there on the call for 30 minutes with them. And you, like I said, you've probably spent at least 90 minutes prepping for this and everything.
Yeah.
Like, that's an extreme waste of time if you're not achieving the goals you set out to achieve. So, yeah, that sandwich and stacking sandwiches is a good way to visualize it, when you're trying to make sure that after you give your answers, you're going right into your next question, and
Mm.
allowing them to digest it, right? That also
Mm.
that gives them time, to digest your answer, even if it is just a split second while you're asking the next question.
No, yeah, dude, I like that, and it also keeps them engaged. And because, like what you mentioned, when you do the whole question and then give all the value, it's like you talked about how when you're watching television, it's like
Hmm.
you don't really remember that you're watching, and like that drooling effect where suddenly, oh, it's the end of the episode. It's like it's the end. That has happened to me while I was on a sales call, where someone just kept on like talking, and he just lost me. Like,
Yep.
even if he, because they tell you to do the whole, does that make sense? Does that make sense? And although I would say yes, but really my yeses is just because you asked me if that makes sense, and who am I to say no? Like, what am I gonna? No, that doesn't make sense. Like, it's just kind of weird, right? But when you
Exactly.
do the
Yeah.
integration, like what you
Exactly.
mentioned, it becomes like a conversation, and it just naturally leads to, okay, I see that we are a good fit, because as we talked about, and I can help you in this, we can get started at Monday.
Yeah.
That's my favorite
Exactly. And
phrase.
that's what, going back to the pink shirt module in the course. Um,
Mm,
like, you put on your favorite TV show that you've seen 78 times. You've watched, start to finish 78 times. Why are you putting on that TV show? It's not because you're going to be engaged with it, right? It's
yeah.
because it's something in the background where your brain can predict what's coming next. So you could
Mm,
tune it out and tune right back in
mm,
um, without having to be too worried about it. But we don't want that for a sales call, right? We want somebody
mm,
to feel as comfortable as they're putting on their favorite TV show, but we want all of a sudden for the volume to get cranked up to 100, and for there to be an explosion in that TV show that never happened before, right?
yeah.
And all of a sudden, boom, they're locked back in because they're like, what the hell is going on with my favorite TV show here? Like, this is different. And that's where pattern interrupts come in.
Yeah.
Being able to interrupt the pattern but still check in with them, right? If you
Yeah.
are interrupting the pattern, you are keeping their attention. If you're checking in with them, you are getting yeses. You're stacking yeses, right? The more
Yeah.
yeses you get throughout the call, the more greater chance of yes at the end of the call. And you are also keeping them engaged and conversational.
Mm,
So you definitely want them to feel comfortable, like they did put their favorite TV show on, but you want them to be engaged as if they're seeing a movie for the first time. But
right.
of course, you want the freedom for them to speak and say what they do or don't like about this movie. So, that is something where, those check-ins, like, imagine you're in a movie theater, you're watching this movie, you're engaged with it, you're engulfed in the storyline, and the movie stops and it goes, and how do you feel about this scene? And you're like, hmm,
Hmm.
how do I feel about this scene? It's pretty
Right.
cool,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
something like that. It's a bit of a weird, way to
Analogy.
explain it. Yeah, definitely. But,
But
um,
dude, I got it. Like, when you explain it that way, I got it.
yeah, and it's just, yeah, I mean it's the pink shirt, it's the pattern interrupt, it's um, it's everything, right? Where you're putting it all together to make sure that you are maintaining their attention, but they they are comfortable enough to where they're able to digest things, but at the
Yeah,
same time, they're not so comfortable where you're just losing them. That is the balance that you need to strike.
for sure, man. And what's funny is that that exact method of pattern interrupts are like I integrated them to my writing. I mentioned to you this to you before, and bro, like everyone started just enjoying my writing. So it's like when you have like little phrases in the middle that is not just like a plain sentence. It's like, but guess what? You know what I mean? Those questions in the middle, but guess what? I didn't close the client. It's like it becomes more interesting when you have that prompt in the middle. It keeps them engaged and curious.
Yeah, and that's even something that one of my favorite copywriters to follow. I am by no means a copywriter. I'm not a great writer, but one of my favorite copywriters to follow, the air fryer king, Andrew Gould. He mentioned something about that recently, and the ways that he goes about that as a copywriter and within his copy. And that's a very interesting follow if you're not following him on Twitter. But yeah, I think that it really does play in so many different ways. The striking a balance between being comfortable and keeping the attention.
Yeah.
And you want your prospect to be comfortable, because if they're not comfortable, if they're on their toes, if they have to feel defensive, they're not going to be able to digest what you're telling them. And if
Mm,
they can't digest what you're telling them, you're going to end up with a lot of, well, let me think on it, or let me
yeah.
ask the wife. Let me get back
That's
to you
the
next
hardest one.
week. That's the hardest one, man. It always will be. I
It's
mean,
harder than the business partner because the business partner you can find a way around that, but the woman, the wife.
yeah, I mean, uh, I've made entire things based around that answer. The "let me ask my spouse" answer. Like, no joke, I've made entire things. I have one client where we made something specifically because he was getting that question or getting that answer so much. Um, but yeah, generally, if they're able to digest it and feel good about it, then you're going to get less of that. You're going to get
Mm.
less of the false objections at the end of the call.
I'm asking like I'm looking at Google if there's a book because if there's not a book that is named "I Need to Ask My Wife," someone, dude, that's a great title. Like
It
for a
is.
sales book, right?
It's a fantastic title. I need to ask my wife.
Dude, there's none. There's nothing.
Oh
There's
man,
nothing, bro. Dude, I
Nathaniel, you're gonna
Corey.
make me write a book, man.
That's what I was gonna say. If you're thinking of writing a book, bro, as a sales coach, that's
I'll I'll have you do the actual writing. I'll narrate my thoughts. Let you write it. Split it 50-50. All right, we got a plan. Me and you were writing a book, man.
yeah. Well, watch out, guys, so that when like your client says, "I need to ask my wife," you know what to do, right?
Yeah, exactly, man. I don't know how long I'm gonna be able to make that book go around that one specific question, but geez,
600 pages, man.
600 pages. Yeah, it's gonna be like the Bible, but for one
Different
specific.
books. There's like there's different books.
Oh man,
Like you're gonna study what type of wife as well. So you like
yeah.
investigate how many kids, how long has the marriage been.
Wife archetypes.
Yeah, man. So one thing I do want to talk about as well is a very interesting idea that you told told me that you taught
Hmm.
me, which you also discussed a little bit in the podcast before, where most people nowadays it's kind of connected to what you mentioned, where they build value and then drop the price.
Hmm.
Um, but with you, and I did found that very useful as well, is you put out the price there immediately so that you will know if you're a good fit. Can you
Yep.
talk more about that on how you developed that idea? Has that always been the case with you selling stuff?
Definitely has not always been the case.
Mm,
So really, once again, it goes back to personalization. That is what I like to do the most is,
Mm,
use the budget to qualify in the beginning of the call. But with some salespeople, that's just not possible because you are, um, you don't have the ability to research, and the answers are um, going to give you their answers are going to give you the direction you're going for the product or service that you're selling,
yeah,
which is one way of handling it. But I like to, whenever possible, if you were able to research, and if this is a sales call where you're expecting to close on this call, I like to qualify up front and be able to get the price out there in the beginning. And so it's not something that I always did. Um, as we talked about a bit on the last podcast, I did start out with kind of an old school sales approach when I first started in
mm,
sales, and it didn't work for me. And so it led me to create my own approach. And now, 10 years later, here we are. But for that specifically, I started doing that when I started running my own company. And I started doing that because I was just so busy and I was so tired of, talking. I talked to people for an hour, and
and
at
they
the
don't
end
have the
of it,
money.
yeah, at the end of it, they're like, oh, well, I can't afford that. And I'm like, okay, well, what have we been doing here? And at a certain point, when it happens enough times, like, I had to start blaming myself, right? Like, it was no longer that they're being an ass or anything. It was just me. Like, my sales approach was not as good as it could have been. And so I was like, okay, like, I have 4 million different things to do. If I'm going to sit here and talk to you, I need to know that you at least value my time and are able to pay me for the value of that time the same way that I value my own time. And my
Right.
company values my time, honestly. Um,
Mm,
and so that was kind of where that was born. And it's why I really do push it with solo business people, right? People
mm,
who are um, building their own business, and they're a one man wrecking crew, more or less. And it's so important because, number one, like I said, it goes back to the value of your time, right?
mm,
Number two, it allows your prospect to consume and start digesting that price,
yeah.
right? And everything that you're talking about from that point forward is going to go back to the comparison with the price, right? If they've said the price is within their budget, then everything from that point forward is going to be okay. This is within my budget. Why would I buy this one instead of other ones that are out there? And that's
Mm,
really what your sales approach comes down to anyway,
mm,
is your market authority and being able to establish that you're the best fit for them. And
right.
so really, I wanted to establish that I was the best fit because this business, my first ever business, and when I was telling you that I, would go uh, be talking to somebody for an hour, this was in person, and sometimes these people would just not be the best fit, and
Yeah.
they would just they'd want something that I was not able to give them, or whatever the case may be, and I'm not going to sell to anybody who's not a good fit for me. That's a decision I made when I started in sales.
Mm,
If I wasn't going to be able to genuinely help them, then I was not going to sell to them.
mm,
And that's just, call it a code of honor or whatever you want to call it, that I live by. It has allowed me to be a salesman and run my own businesses. And when my head hits the pillow at night, I sleep beautifully, because I know that anybody that I am selling to, um, I don't have to worry about them coming back and being upset about their purchase or anything, because I do genuinely believe that I am
good
going to
fit.
be, or the product that I sell them is going to be the best fit for them. So to circle back to your question here, the price at the top allows you to establish that fit with a value tag on it,
Yeah.
right? Allows you to
Not a
establish
price
the
tag.
fit. Exactly. Exactly. A
Mm,
value tag on it rather than a price tag, where the price at the bottom oftentimes, and this is situational once again, right? It's not for every single call, and that's why prep for every single call should be different. But the price tag at the bottom becomes a price tag because it's like questions, value, price tag,
It's like,
right? Rather than rather than budget and price, which need to line up, and then building the value tag for that price. Um, Now, there's going to be a lot of old school salespeople who are, going to be punching their computers when they hear this, but um, and that's okay because this is something that I found works for me and it works for my clients. It works for people who genuinely only want to sell to people who are a good fit for what they're selling.
yeah.
And if that's not you, then uh, we'd get on a call and you wouldn't be a good fit for me anyway. So there you go. Um, like, I mean, it really is that simple most of the time. And that has allowed me to, not just the price tag at the top type thing, but the whole theory around that has allowed
Yeah.
me to really only work with people who I love working with, man.
Yeah.
And part of the solo biz thing is like, dude, just
Freedom.
work with, like, don't work with assholes. Like,
Yeah.
don't work with people who are expecting something that you can't give them, or that is going to, if you're spending 15 hours a week on one client and 1 hour a week on another client and they're paying the same price, there's an issue there,
Yeah.
right? um, and that's, just don't have nightmare clients and be upfront with them and build the fit, build the value, um, is my
In the middle.
entire, yeah, my that's my entire sales process there,
I
or
like
it's the
that. No,
theory around my sales process.
I've never thought of it that way, but now that you mention, it's like it's great that you put the price at the top, not at the bottom, because the conversation will be about finding a good fit and like the value of your services rather than the price tag. Because like when you end with the price tag and they don't already have that anchor in the beginning, it's just gonna be about like is my money, like it's just gonna be about the numbers. Like can I afford it?
Yeah, and I think anchor is a great way to put it. And there's two things really that you just mentioned that come into play there. Number one, like we talked about, we want them to do as little processing, or to have to do as little processing at the end of the call as possible, right?
Yeah.
When it goes into that commitment, we want them to have already digested everything that they need to
Yeah.
digest. Um, and if you're just now getting the price, it's going to be very difficult to be like, yeah, I'm really excited about this. Oh my gosh, yeah, these benefits are awesome. When the whole time they're sitting there going, okay, when's the other shoe going to drop? You know, when is the bad news coming?
Yeah.
When am I going to have to, um, hear how much this is going to cost me?
Yeah.
And once again, that's a scenario where if your cost is out there, if they already know your cost, if it was pre-discussed, if it's, if they responded to a tweet that says your product is X amount of money, it's a little bit of a different story, right? Then at the beginning of the call, it just becomes a check-in, like, hey, the tweet that you responded to said it was this much money. I believe that's about the price range that we're going to be working in here. I just want to make sure that you're a good fit for this based on all the questions that I have for you. Is that something that's within your budget? And that's smooth sailing, right? But it should be smooth sailing anyway. That's the entire point, is you want it to be smooth sailing. So, um, yeah, I think that that's the difference there. And I will once again send out the caution that it is not for every sales
Every,
process.
yeah.
It is for specific sales processes, and you need to, personalize your sales process as well as personalize your approach for
Outreach.
each
Yeah.
client.
Hmm.
Yep, for your outreach and for each client that you're getting, on a call with or doing anything along those lines. I am very big on personalization, because, well, for many reasons, but I won't dive into that rabbit hole for now.
Yeah. All right. So now we talked about, like your expertise, all that. I wanted to touch on how has X been for you as, you got into here. I'm not mistaken, like about 30 days ago, more than that, but less than 60, I'm sure. Right.
Yeah, so I went full time um, coming up on 2 months ago.
Okay.
So the end of the month will be about 2 months.
All right.
So I started this X. I still go to call it Twitter. I started this X account a little over 4 months ago. I think it was like 17 weeks ago. Um,
Mm.
so for me, it's been a really interesting experience, man. Um, I have built a business with X as my sole X Twitter at the time, as my sole top of funnel before, and that did well. And that was a whole process. And this time, I didn't really want to go. I didn't really want to build like such a big funnel. I just wanted to be
Mm.
like, hey, I think I could help you, and then help people, and then go from there. Um, and so really that's what I've been doing, and it's been good. So I put it out there that um, within my first 35 days I hit my first goal that I had initially thought was going to take me 3 months, and that would be my first revenue goal. So I can't really complain with that being the case. It's been good, and at this point, well, I made a nice sale yesterday, so I don't know if before yesterday, the majority of my revenue was coming from Twitter and Twitter alone.
Mm.
Um, there is still some off Twitter clients who I have who actually started this whole thing for me. The way I got started was literally just a former coworker being like, "Hey, can you help me?" And then they referred me to somebody, and then they referred me to somebody, and all of a sudden I had a client base, and um, I was just helping salespeople, and then I created the X account and just kind of fell face first into this. So it's been great. It's been treating me well, to answer your question. Um, it's been, paying the bills, keeping the lights on. I got light, so thankful for that,
And you
man.
got dogs, man.
Oh, the dogs, yeah, they eat me out of house and home.
So yeah, man. X, that's insane what you did. She mentioned like 10K in 30 days. I know you don't say it a lot, but I'm gonna say here, I'm gonna flex it for you. But like everyone talks about, sharing my journey in 10K, and you see them 6 months later, they're still sharing their journey to 10K. And you, my friend, did it in 30 days. That is crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna correct your numbers there.
Okay.
35 days after going full
Okay.
time. So
All
not
right.
starting the
Okay.
X account, but going full time.
Right. Going
Um,
full time.
and I was about $200 short of 10K in revenue. So um, not
That's
not
a
the full
lot.
10K within the 35 days. But yeah, man, it's been quite a ride. I really did not know what to expect when I went full time.
Yeah.
I knew that the people that I was taking on and the people that I was speaking to, um, I knew that they could use what I was doing.
Mm.
And that was really what I fell back on is I know that my skills are within sales. I know that I've built a top of funnel using this social media platform before, even though it was different. Um, and I knew that I already had a base of revenue coming in. Um, from outside of Twitter, and then I had already had a couple of Twitter clients at the time. And really, it was just a matter of taking that jump, and I put everything into what I was best at. Um, every decision that I have made up to this point, bar a few that I would call more so on the mistake side, every decision I have made up to this point has been strictly based on what I know I can do in sales. And knowing that my sales ability is my strength because that's my background. Um, and so, really, really, really just every single decision being made around that. And I am not
Mm.
exaggerating there. And I'm sure you've seen some of it. We've been talking for a while. You've been my client for a while now, and you've seen a good amount of my decisions kind of be head scratchers for like most people on Twitter. It's be like,
Yeah.
why would I do that instead of this?
Yeah.
But for
But
me,
yeah, man,
it's
it
just,
fucking works, bro. Like I'm telling you right now. If
yeah. And I mean, like, you asked me like what are some of the biggest mistakes that I see people making when they're starting their solo biz on X or
yeah.
whatever. Um, and I think a great answer to that as well would be in the macro, trying to do everything, right? Like trying to do everything and copy Danco or whoever else. No offense to Danco, I'm sure the guy's great. Um,
Yeah.
but like, and then I even tweeted about it yesterday, trying to copy and paste somebody else's process. If somebody else is making 10K, 15K, whatever a month,
Hmm.
um, you can't just copy and paste their process and have the same exact results. Like, you're a different person, man. Um, and so, yeah, for me, it was really leaning into my strengths, and I think that that is something that people who are just starting here, they got to do. You have to know, first of all, what your strength is, right?
Hmm.
For you, you went out there and spent a boatload of money on copywriting stuff, right? Like, that was, you were determined that you were going to be great at writing, right? At
Yeah.
copywriting. Um, and so you built a strength and you built it quickly.
Yeah.
And you're able to now make decisions that play into that strength, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes you and I will be talking and I'll be like, okay, well, what about this? And you're like, bro, I got it. I'm going to do this, and that. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not what I do, but your strength is copywriting. So that makes sense that, you'd
Yeah.
want to go that direction when I want to go this direction. And, so yeah, that's what I'd say, man. Is I only got there because I played into my strength.
Hmm.
Um, and you have to know yourself well enough to know your strength, know your weaknesses, and to be able to really just hammer on that strength over and over and over and over and over. And if that strength is not going to make you money, then you got two options. You could spend your time or you could spend your money,
Yeah.
right? To go get help. And I know that one of my weaknesses is marketing. Like,
Yeah.
I know that. I'm a sales guy, I'm not a marketer. I know that one of my weaknesses is marketing and outward positioning.
Hmm.
So I hired somebody to help with that. Like, that's been some of the only money I've spent. I have like a $17 per month overhead right now, um,
Hmm.
which is nuts. I invested about 2,500 into this business to get it going, and now it's about $17 a month is my overhead. So, um, yeah, man, just play into your strengths and don't copy people. Like, do your thing.
Yeah, man. I just wanted to like my mind was kind of refreshed while we were talking. The last time we hopped on a podcast, you were still not going full time.
Yep.
You were you're just like coaching some people. It's dude. I'm looking back at it. You mentioned to me in that podcast that you were thinking of going full time, and the day after that, you actually did. Like you messaged me, bro. I just quit my job, and it's, you just told me, bro. I just quit my job. I'm gonna go on this full time, and now you're here, man. That's insane. But yeah,
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. That's no doubt. And really, at that point, I was like, um, there was some stuff happening in my 9 to 5 where they were making changes, and I it just felt right, and I was just like, screw it, like,
yeah.
what's what's the worst thing that happens? Like, I fail spectacularly. Like, okay, I've done that before. It's not the end of the
What's
world. I'm
new?
Yeah, I'm still here. Like, um, yeah, man, that fear of failure, and I had a great conversation with my buddy Andrew on Twitter about this yesterday, um, where he recorded a video in response to one of my tweets, and talking about the fear of failure when you're kind of younger versus when you have a family to
Hmm.
support and things of that nature. Um, and I think that one of the biggest misconceptions out there is that failure is, the end all be all, right? You see a lot of people on Twitter being like, "Oh, I love to fail." Like, Well,
We talked about this so much, bro.
yeah. First of all, like, no. Failure sucks, man. It sucks. In anything you do, failure sucks. Like, you should always want to win. Like, I will cut my thumb off to win. I'll cut my thumb off to win a game of tic-tac-toe. Like, but so many people get paralyzed, and it's either because of fear of failure or not knowing what to do next. And I think that the more prevalent cause for paralyzation that I see, like on X, is just literally not knowing what step to take. And so you get in this never-ending cycle of, gaining followers and, getting more likes and things like that. And people think that that is progress. And while getting a bigger audience, don't get me wrong, it is progress, right? Speaking to more people is progress. At the end of the day, progress is very binary to me. It's, am I on track to hit my monetary goals? Like, that is progress. Am I making moves towards that? But the thing is, people seem to not know what moves to make and how to build that foundation, which goes back to what we were talking about in terms of what I find myself helping people with as kind of the business consultant side of things, where it's, just building that initial foundation, getting the sales process off the ground, and actually building a pipeline that is going to bring in steady sales over the long period of time. It's not just about getting your first client. It's about getting your 30th client, a couple months down the road or whatever. So, and being able to consistently talk to people who are prospects, and being able to consistently get in the sales process. And this is one thing that, it's very difficult to get on a sales call, work for a client, 2 months later, get on your next sales call. It's very difficult to be good within your sales process when you're not doing it consistently. Exactly. So, not having a pipeline and not having a foundation to build that pipeline on top of is so detrimental, and it leaves people just floating around there in the atmosphere. Like I said earlier, I get on calls sometimes with, younger entrepreneurs who, are not prospects to me. It's just talking and trying to help. And one thing I see a lot of is, I'll ask, what's your angle? What are you good at? What do you help people with? And I get responses like, I build websites, I write copy, I write emails. And it's like, okay. And like, what are you good at? For me, I'm great at building foundational sales processes and allowing people to convert at a higher rate to monetize their time at a higher level, right? And that wording is not correct. I have it written down somewhere, but that's the basic gist of what I do, is build foundational pipelines and help people value their time more highly. And I can use that as an angle, and I'm very good at that, to be able to sit there and speak to somebody and say, hey, this is how I'm going to help you, and this is why nobody in the world is better at doing this for you at this price point, right? And you have to truly believe that you are the best at what you do for the specific scenario, right? You don't have to be the best ghostwriter at your price point. You just have to be the best for their specific scenario, the best fit for them at your price point. And so many people, think that it's just, I do this, pay me money. And that's never going to be the case, man. That's never going to be the case.
Yeah, bro. Because there's so many people doing that. Like what you mentioned, I build websites. Like, yo, AI can I can literally go to Wix, ask him to build me a website, the AI, and it'll build me a website. And that's what, $10.
Yeah, I mean, what is your angle? What is your specialty? What can you help me out with that I, even if I've heard it, what how are you going to fit with me
Yeah.
where it's going to benefit me?
Mm.
And your price point is, you're going to be the best at your price point, and your price point is going to bring me a return on my investment. And that doesn't always mean monetarily, right?
Yeah.
Um, I know that there's mindset coaches out there. Their goal is not to, bring you a 20%
More
return
money.
on
Yeah.
investment. Yeah, their goal is to help you stay sane, right? To put it at a very base level, to help you stay sane and to stay in the mindset where you can help yourself make more money, or you can help yourself, have a life with your family while you're working or something like that. And that is the return on investment. And it doesn't have to be monetary, but there has to be some kind of return on investment, for what you're doing that fits that person at a personal level,
Yeah.
right? It
Yeah.
has to fit them at their level. And that is the difference. Oh man, we can talk for three
Go-
more hours about this one, but that's the difference. Jason, I believe it was Jason Fox tweeted this out the other day.
Mm.
Um, and I may be misquoting who tweeted this, so I apologize if I am. Um, but that is the difference between a product and a service. So many people advertise and sell their services like their products, when in reality, services are an extremely personal thing. You're doing
Yeah.
something for somebody, um, and it has to be personal, and that's why you can charge the prices that you can. That's why you can sell a high ticket service,
Yeah.
is because it is personal. So yeah, like I said, I can go on for 3 hours about that, man. So I'll leave that right there. But the difference between selling a product and a service is very staunch, and the waters have kind of been muddied, and it's kind of murky for a lot of people. And you got to figure out, if you're selling a service, what allows you to be a good fit for those people that you're selling to.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely get that. One thing I do want to add to that, I've been going deep into right now, I'm studying, is like in terms of positioning. So this is actually kind of like we're leaning into a marketing place because, well, it's kind of like still sales, but so there's the idea, but versus marketing versus sales, at least like how I view it right now, is marketing is more like your story. So it's like what sets you apart from the market. Sales is more like what are your here are your options, what's the good fit, and you're kind of like convincing them that you are a good fit. Not convincing them, but you are showing that you are a good fit. But in terms of like positioning, which is marketing, you're really trying to just separate yourself completely from the market. So there's a market, and like you're just removing yourself from the market and becoming a completely different market, so that you are the only one they would buy to from.
Yeah, and I was actually on a call with Sebastian Rosga yesterday.
Mm.
And Seb, I'm sorry if I butchered your last name if you're listening to this, but and that guy is positioning king, man. Um, he is, the guy I listened to about positioning things, and outward positioning. And it's very interesting because you mentioned marketing versus sales, and I do believe that there's a ton of positioning done within your sales
Sales.
process.
Mm-hmm.
And really, in one instance, you have outward positioning,
Mm.
which is what I'd call it for like marketing. And then
Marketing.
you
Yeah.
have inward positioning, right?
Mm.
The outward positioning is going to position you to a large amount of people,
Right.
and the inward positioning is going to position them to you.
Oh shit, bro, that is so fucking sick. Holy shit. So it's like marketing is like that, like outward, and then
Mhm.
sales like holy shit,
Yep.
holy
But
fuck.
the real mind twist to me came when I first started working with Seb a while back. And my thinking with marketing was that I am, with it being outward and it
Mm.
going that way as you just described it, like I have to make everything more general.
Right.
But as you know, as a seasoned copywriter, that's
Yeah.
not the case. I'm talking to
Yeah.
specific people
Yeah.
in that marketing and positioning.
Yeah.
The thing is, those people have to be in my audience
Mm.
for it to be effective. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of what I do is I'll have a conversation with a client or a prospect, and then I'll tweet out as if I'm just continuing that conversation,
Yeah.
right? And my audience is small, but the people who are most likely to buy from me are going to resonate with that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I handle my outward positioning. Do I think that it is the most effective way to do it? Probably not. I'm not a marketer.
Hmm.
I'm not a copywriter,
Yeah.
but it's something that generally works for me. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, man, that was a whole thing when I realized that, you have your outward positioning and then you have your inward positioning,
Yeah.
but the outward positioning is
It's
not more
targeted.
generalized.
Yeah, it's still
Exactly.
targeted. You still like look. So in a way, you still choose a path that you like, that you like spread yourself into. You don't just spread yourself like like that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like this
It's
rather than like that. Yeah. To
um
make it simple for anybody still watching, it's this, not that. Okay.
yeah, I did fall for that because when you so for example me, how I did it before was that I just literally just wrote anything that I wanted to, and I'd get. That's how I grew from like 68 to 700 followers in 1 month during that time. And it was, you get addicted to, well, for me, I was only on X just to like have fun. I never thought of like monetizing until that point where I blew up. When I blew up, I was like, man, there's potential in here. I'm having trouble with my job. I've been seeing people talking about making money, so why don't I make it work? So I started doing that, and it was really hard for me to like think of talking to specific people and like trying to narrow down my my message, my content, because like less people will be interacting with me because
Yeah.
I'm basically talking to one person. But and it was true, like I did get less engagement, but the money increase, less engagement but more cash, bro, because like you're actually talking to someone, and that like they're actually feeling like, man, this guy's like, he's talking to me, not like just shouting out there.
Yeah, man. And like that's once again, I'm no marketing expert. I will never claim to be a marketing expert. So take everything I say when it comes to marketing with a grain of salt. But also, like, yeah, that's kind of my entire point in doing what I do, with trying to continue conversations, is that I know if this is a conversation that I'm having with somebody who is a client or qualified prospect, that
Mm,
my qualified prospects that are out there
mm.
should have the same type of issues, or we should be having the same conversations. So, um, in speaking to them, I think it's something that really resonates. But yeah, man, like that, the inward positioning in the sales process, that's something that, yeah, like that. Now you are positioning them as a fit with you rather
Wow.
than positioning yourself outwardly, um, which is, yeah,
That's so
it
dope.
it's a little bit of a light bulb when you
It was
start
a
looking
mind
at it
fuck,
that way.
bro. Like when I heard it from you, like the way you did this visual, I was like, whoa, holy shit, it actually makes sense, bro. But yeah, okay, so now I want to ask you then, like, now you are making like 10K per month. You closed a big client recently. Um, you're crushing it on X. Like you're the epitome of people talking about, you don't need, like Aaron Will talks about, like, you micro authority, you don't need a lot of followers to make money. You're the, at least for me in my space, you're the epitome of that, because like you have what, 400, like, how many followers do you have right now?
Like a little over 300.
Three. Jesus, I even like overshot there. You have 300 followers at this moment, July 19, 2024. You have 300 followers and you're making 10K months on X. That is fucking insane, man. But now, like moving forward, what can we expect from Cory Woodward?
Oh man, a lot of the same. So in reality, like I am moving towards working with, getting even more personalized with the clientele that I'm working with. So
Mm,
I would love to continue with my current clients and continue to personalize things down the road for them.
mm.
Any current clients who are still watching this, hi guys. um, but
You
you
should
know,
have worn your pink shirt, bro.
yeah, I should have really. Um, but yeah, like I down the road, I want to make sure that they are taken care of and continuing to move forward. So long-term plans for them, and really I want to continue to get into the agency and business space where I'm doing more personalized work. It's not necessarily just my one offer that I have for my one-on-one coaching. um, like with a new client I've taken on, it's going to be, um, a lot more work in
Yeah,
terms of like everything provided, but really getting in depth. And I mean, that with my current clients, like I work a lot more in depth than my offer says.
yeah,
I do a lot more than my offer would let on. And so I really love going in depth like that. And being able to do that for people who have already seen success and want to take the next step, build out a new sales team, build out a new sales process, something like that. That is really where I see myself going, where I can really get into the weeds on the stuff that I have a lot of fun with, which is in-depth stuff such as specific cadences, paths, prospect archetypes, all that good stuff, where I can build stuff out for people. So that is what's kind of on the horizon for me right now. I still am focused on X on my specific uh, 30-day sprint one-on-one offer.
mm,
But long term, that's kind of where I see myself going. And I am, as of yesterday, I'm already closing those types of deals. So, we'll see how it continues to progress.
yeah. But it's insane, man. Again, like you just, I don't. I'm speechless when it turns to, in, in terms of like monetary wise and the like business aspect. Because when I met you, I was like, bro, this guy has 300 followers. How is he making money? Like this. But yeah. So where can people find you, man?
Yeah. Well, really, I mean, I do have a LinkedIn, but I don't use it, so don't message me there. Really, just on my Twitter, Woody Sales. I have my website linked on my Twitter. I do have a
Sales coach
Telegram.
Cory.
Yeah, Sales Coach Cory, baby. Um, I,
Sales coach
I
Cory.com,
need to,
right?
yeah, I need to buy a new domain name. Um, but yeah, just hit me up on Twitter. I'm always around.
Oh man, you said hit me up, bro. Like,
Don't pitch me, please. I'm not gonna buy your product. I'm I'll just be straight up with you. Like, I'm not gonna buy your stuff. uh,
yeah, but yeah, man. It was nice talking to you. Any last words you'd like to say?
no, I think we got pretty in depth this time. I was able to not have a 1 hour uh, absolute cutoff. So, as always, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, no, I said everything I wanted to say. Thank you, Nathaniel, as always. You're a fantastic podcast host, and I do appreciate you.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's still not the end because we are still gonna do the. I'll talk to my wife book coming soon.
Coming soon, yeah. End of 2024. Be ready to purchase the hard copy. We will undoubtedly have it on Kindle and
And
everywhere else.
Audible.
Audible. Audible. Yep.
It'll be all over the place.
But
All
buy
right,
the
man.
hard copy, and me and Nathaneal will sign it before we send it to you. Signed by the authors.
All right, man. Yeah, it was fun having you. Ciao.